Today we will try an interesting task, and as always, the instrument will be serious, but the dimensions will not. Welcome to the W&M channel. Unexpectedly out of nowhere, I got this bunch of interesting round pieces. Hopefully, I will get around to finishing everything at some point, but today we will make a handheld woodworking tool. I have these knives here, and thanks to them, I got this idea. First, we cut out a knife of a razor sample shape on a laser machine. The metal overheats a little on the edge of the cut, but this doesn't matter since there is a bit of margin. Now you need to separate the part from the workpiece and extrude the inner part. The next step is to make the body. And as it often happens, it will be made of brass. From the 1mm sheet we will make the side parts, and from the 2mm sheet we will make the sole. Align a small sacrificial plate made of aluminum, and here we glue the workpiece for our future part. It will not be exactly a classic version of the plane. Instead of the pressure mechanism, there will be a pressure screw and guide grooves. But this does not change the essence, and we mill out two side parts. With the 0.4mm mill, we cut the grooves only, and the contour edges are milled with the 1mm cutter. The groove is 0.5mm wide. The knife is exactly the same thickness, so everything will fit nicely. In order to remove the parts, now you need to thoroughly heat everything up. Everything fits perfectly, so we can continue. We mill out the sole, and that requires a bit more tinkering. The holes for attaching the handles or the knob and the tote are made blind. There are two parts, because in the middle there is a knife tray. Fortunately, unlike a tap, a small mill can create a thread in a shadow-blind hole, and this, by the way, is a great advantage of thread mills. Check if all the dimensions are correct and remove. Since the knife will be fixed at a 45-degree angle, the tray must be proceed at the same angle. A cutter for wood can handle this, since brass is a relatively soft metal. For aesthetics, we also remove the chamfer from the back. Fortunately, the cutter has the same 45-degree angle, and this makes the task much easier. Sometimes it's better not to trust the CNC machine, but to work manually and control the entire process. That way it's easier not to make a mistake and you can always stop in time. And the last part of the base is the back. It will also be 2mm thick. And since the hole is through, the thread is also easier to cut by hand. I hope the masters will forgive me for such use of a rod compass. The thread is ready, and we also mill the tower part at 45 degrees. Somehow, all this must be connected. Laser jewelry welding will be a good option, but for now only soldering is available. So that all this does not fall apart or acquire an undesirable shape during soldering, I quickly made temporary clamps out of welding wire, and as you know, it prints quite well. Thoroughly coat the joints with liquid flux and place the solder. A small burner heats things up for a long time, but does so evenly, and this has a positive effect on the quality of the soldering. It is very important that the solder actually gets into the seam. It has melted well, but it does not look very good yet, and there is still lots of polishing ahead. First of all, we polish the bottom plane. It is the most important thing here. The rest is for aesthetics. We get rid of excess solder, which flows even where it should not. We grind the knife in order to see if it fits on its spot, and we will take care of the cutting part later. Initially, I planned to make the handles by hand, but they are very tiny, and in order to maintain the proportions correctly, I still resorted to using the CNC. We will use the 2.5D processing. That is, first the upper side of the part is proceed down to the middle, then it is flipped, and again the same operation is repeated from the reverse side. But if there was a proper fourth axis, it would be possible to do full 3D processing without any problems. Overall, it turned out well, so let's move on. Now we need to cut the workpiece to the desired length and drill a hole in the center. Nevertheless, it will be not enough to simply glue the handle on, so there will be a screw in the center, same as the enlarged planes. The milling cutter still leaves a noticeable mark, and we will remove it with sandpaper. We will make the front handle knob by hand on a lathe with an impromptu tool rest. Even the small cutter was too large. I found an old sewing needle somewhere and reshaped it into a micro cutter. Now we make a hole in the center and grind it. In order not to ruin the structure of the wood, I decided to cut it off with wire. It turned out to be a rather practical solution. Hornbeam has a rather dense structure, therefore even on small parts pores are barely noticeable, and this is just what we need. We cover it with a mixture of oil and varnish, let it soak well, and then remove the excess. I deliberately did not make them glossy for a greater resemblance to the original. The most difficult thing is to remove the excess solder. I didn't completely remove it just in case it did not flow into all the seams. We do not polish all the parts. I don't really like it when everything is too glossy and shiny. We just take care of the rest with fine sandpaper. It's time to sharpen the knife. The sharpening angle will be 30 degrees, and for this we make a small device. We will sharpen with the simple diamond disc. It has a slight run out, but in our case it is not critical. The edge will be finished on stone, as it should be. This is how the knife came out. Everything seems to be legit. The screws are made of stainless steel, so they do not magnetize to the screwdriver. I had to attach a small piece of gum, and it turned out to be a nice little life hack. Now we coat the top part with another kind of glue and attach the handles. And now the last part. On the lathe, we make the clamping screw for the knife. We will make it from stainless steel as well. The most interesting thing is that I started to shoot this video 600 kilometers from the place where I finished, meaning I moved to a new workshop and sometime I will show it to you. We will make this screw head not for a screwdriver, but as it should be, knurled. I like how the pattern comes out after the knurling. Even on small parts, it is very even. We remove the chamfers and cut off the screw. And finally, the finished model can be assembled. It turned out to be a real plane, which is difficult to hold even with 4 fingers. And finally, it's time to try it. Despite being difficult to hold, it works. Perhaps if you readjust it a little more, you can get even thinner chips, but I did not have enough patience for that. In general, it turned out to be quite a working tool, albeit very small. By the way, you get completely different sensations from working with handled tools like planes and chisels than from working on a CNC. At the same time, you not only see the wood processing, you feel it with your hands, and it's very cool. Bye-bye.